It's Wednesday, and that so happens to be the day that we like to talk about movies. I'm Jeff Arbuckle, and this is Film Seizure, presented to you by Monster Mondays. And this week, we start Stephen King month for our spooky October theme with a movie that I've wanted to talk about one way or another for a really long time. 1979 Salem's Lot. And with me, as always, are Chuck Moore and Jason Oliver. Fellas, how's it going?
What's up?
Going awesome.
We have a sponsor this week?
Well,
are they writing us a fat check over at Monster Mondays?
Sure. made out of the finest rubber. So man, it's like Salem's Lot. This is one that I've seen quite a few times in my life, to be honest with you. And to be honest with you, I've seen it recent enough that I didn't really need to watch it again, which is odd because recent enough was like a couple of years ago. But I still, like, a lot of this is, God, it sticks in my head. You know, it's like this is just a movie I've seen a ton of times, and I rented it when it was on VHS. It's like I've, for some reason, have seen this movie probably more than any other Stephen King movie.
First, we should say that this is Stephen King month. I don't know. Did you mention that in your intro?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't hear it. You were blaring through that one. That was kind of like.
Hey,
that's
man.
a lot of information. We had a sponsor, and I was like, holy crap, we have a sponsor brought to us by Monster Mondays. What's he saying? This is amazing. We're hitting the big time. Yes,
which is, well, I mean, for like almost 100 episodes, Monster Mondays has been sponsored by Film Seizure. So
right.
It's only fair that I return the favor. Right?
We do a little funny accounting over at Film Seizure, folks.
Oh yeah, we're hiding money all over. Like, Steve Bannon's got some out in that fucking boat of his. You know, it's like, oh my God, I hope the post office never finds all the money we've stashed away.
Yeah. Well, if they keep dismantling the post office, we'll be okay.
Well, we'll
Yeah.
be fine.
But yes, back to Salem's Lot, I guess. I don't know the last time I saw this. I definitely have seen it. It might have been in high school the last time I saw this movie. I remember this movie was in the teacher's lounge at the boarding school I went to on VHS, like the double tape VHS, right?
There was a single VHS, which I think is the edited down.
There's a 2-hour version of this that's edited down from the 3-hour full TV version. But yeah, I remember watching that. I think I swiped it and we watched it late one night, and really liked it. And I hadn't seen it since. I have read Salem's Lot since then, and I think I even read Salem's Lot before I saw this the first time. And from what I remember, it's also been a long time since I've read Salem's Lot, but it's pretty faithful, at least to the broad strokes of the story.
I was checking out the Wikipedia page, and it felt like it was like there may have been some characters that were combined down into one or split into two.
I find Ben Mears to be a lot more likable in the book than here.
That's surprising because,
but he does grow on me. But he starts out the movie kind of like off-putting,
a little skeevy.
Yeah, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But yeah, so I didn't have a ton of nostalgia necessarily for this particular TV movie, but definitely the story itself, definitely the book, and there's one thing I know Chuck and I want to talk about that gets sort of excised from this version of Salem's Lot that is really important to King's follow-up to the events of Salem's Lot.
Yes, definitely. As far as this movie is concerned, I had a lot of memories of scenes that I expected to come up, and I think these are the excise things you're talking about. Like, I remember them in my head, maybe from reading the book. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, so this is coming up, and then it never happened. So I think I remember the book a lot more, and I have a pretty clear like memory of the events that, you know, you create your images in your head when you're reading a book, etc., whatever. So I was like, wait a minute, that's the book and not the movie? But I also had not seen this in a long time. I have also read the book since But overall, it's an enjoyable film. I dug it.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I will say is that I really, really, really like the pacing of this movie.
Mm-hmm. It does not feel like a 3-hour movie.
It doesn't, but then also it breathes. So like it's because one of the notes that I made, and we'll get there eventually when we talk about the movie, but like the entire first half is just setting the stage. Like the vampires really, like once the vampire stuff really starts to kick off, it really starts to kick off like in that last 45 minutes or so of the whole thing. But like you are, I kind of will say this is a good example of where if you are basically with your lead character, Ben, and you are kind of folding into this town and all the little stories in the town just as he is. And I think it's a really, really good example of just solid, like scene setting, character building. Like it feels like there's a history there and you're getting it.
Yep.
Yeah, it feels, if the town feels rich. It even right down to the the fact that they're doing the pageant. There's this yearly pageant, and the pageant is telling you little bits and pieces about the history of this town, right? And you really get a sense of King's storytelling and what this place is about, and kind of like this evil that's always sort of lurked there at the Marston house. I mean, you just feel all of that immediately. Their tone is perfectly set, and carries through the entire 3 hours. It drives the whole movie.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, Jeff.
No, go ahead.
Toby does one of the big reasons I love King as a writer is his world building and his, we'll call it town building here or whatever. But Tobe, is it Tobe or Toby?
Toby.
Yeah,
it's Toby.
Toby really used King's world building well in this movie to introduce us to the town, to the characters. None of it felt really forced, maybe save one meeting. But yeah, I mean, you don't see that a lot because King's books are world building in a lot of internalized moments. And those internalized moments also are played off well in this movie. So I think Toby like really understood the source material. Not that Salem's Lot is a very intricate story per se, but he pulled off a lot of that stuff that's in the book very, very well.
Yeah, and I don't think we have mentioned that one of the interesting things about this is that it's Tobe Hooper, who this was probably his first real mainstream anything outside of, like he hit it big with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and now he's doing the mainstream stuff. And
this is definitely his first big chance.
And I think that this is also a movie that really, really kind of lends credence to the fact that I think he has a lot more control over Poltergeist than he's given credit for.
Well, you can see it in his framing, in his shot selection. There was a shot that is straight out of Poltergeist, or I should say that it's straight out, that was seen in Poltergeist is straight out of this, actually. But it's when the one kid vampire has been buried by the caretaker of the graveyard. I can't remember his name.
Jeffrey Lewis is the actor.
Right. He shows up later in a bunch of Rob Zombie movies.
Yeah, he takes over the Elisha Cook Jr. role of town drunk, and
yes, totally.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he totally does. Yeah.
So when they're together in this movie, it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah, there's a lot of town drunks here.
Elijah, he's still got that one. Yeah. Another great Elijah Cook role is Kubrick's The Killing. He's amazing in that.
There's two actors from The Killing in this.
Who's the other?
I forget his name. I shouldn't have brought it up without knowing his name, but I'll find it and I'll bring it back up.
Well, James Mason was in Lolita, of course. But,
yep. But anyway, the shot up and into that grave is very Poltergeist, and the way the vampire boy kind of sits up. It's all like the skeleton in the muck kind of stuff. You know?
It's the jump scare of you're not you know it's coming. You know it's kind of that's there. Yeah.
Oh my God! And there is a shot later where it's so good. It's amazing. It's when they're in the Marston house, and it's is it Susan Norton? Bonnie Bedelia. She's come into the house looking for Mark. And she's coming on the first floor, and it's a set, but it's a 2-story set of the house, right? And the camera pulls back from her to reveal the second story and the staircase, and you see Mark walking along the second floor, and she's below, and it's just it's like, this is a TV movie.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. So let's talk about that here for a second, because so this was so the rights were obtained by Warner Brothers. It's 400-page novel ish, 400-ish, and they intended to stay very, very very true to it as much as possible. They had Tobe Hooper ready to go, but they quickly realized that they couldn't stay true to it and have it be a theatrical release. And so then you change up, but it's still made like a 1979 film. It's film stock. It doesn't look like a TV movie. The TV movie element comes in with editing, because
editing and some of the sets. You could tell that it had a budget, but it didn't have a feature budget. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It is. Let's see here. Do we have a budget number?
Look, $1 million, which is pretty decent for '79.
$4 million. That's probably certainly one of the most expensive TV movies by that time. So the I guess actually it was turned into a okay, I'm sorry. Tobe Hooper came along after it was turned over to Warner Brothers Television's department. But yeah, Larry Cohen was somebody who had attempted to make a movie, which is funny because
he made the sequel.
Yeah.
And the sequel is batshit. I've seen the sequel recently, and it is insanity. It is so campy. It is a totally different tone. He played up a lot of the soap opera aspects of the original, and kind of went with that.
But yeah, there's a big difference though in you can make the soap opera stuff in this TV movie very charming and very down to earth and very like, again, it's that world building, right? It's a small town where everybody knows each other. And when one guy's wife is cheating on him with somebody else that he sees every day practically, yeah, you're gonna get some high drama there. And also an awesome sex jumper.
Oh man.
Well, we'll talk about that when we get there. So so this is so Ben Mears is David Soul. Now he was Hutch in Starsky and Hutch.
That's right.
Oh yes.
He also had a hit song in the 70s.
Oh my gosh.
Kind of an easygoing song. But anyway, he is, I pick up that he's a frustrated writer, that he's not exactly as popular as he kind of thinks he is, maybe, because he's returning home and nobody knows who the hell he is. It's not that big of a town.
Well, he left when he was 10 years old.
Yeah, he was 10.
Well, okay, that's true. But
and he's probably in his 30s, I would guess.
Yeah, probably like early to mid 30s.
Yeah,
he might, because everybody in 1979 looked 20 years older. So I would say he's probably 23. but he just looks like he's like 40.
Right. People age differently back then, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Bonnie Bedelia was only 11 when she was in this, so
Whoa.
she just...
Whoa, that's not good.
But no, so anyway, he returns home because he wants to write a book about the Marsden house. And this is a pretty classic trope, really. I mean, every town has that haunted house, or that house that all the kids would dare each other to go up to, or whatever. I think I've talked about this before, but I lived in an apartment complex that had this one little portion that had these 6 perfectly placed trees, and because it was in the center of, like, based on how the buildings were placed, it was like very dark. And then you had these 6 trees, and it would capture wind differently. So like all the kids says like, oh yeah, it's like there was a guy who killed his family, and I don't know why we thought this, buried them inside the trees. And each of the trees did look like it had like a hatchet mark on it. So it's like, that was our thing, right? You know, and it's like the whole thing was because of the way that it was always cooler because it captured the wind differently, and so like we always thought it was haunted. We knew better.
Yeah.
But it's that thing that every neighborhood has that one spot where you tell the story, and you know, you're just daring each other to basically piss your pants. By, you know, making them think that something's going to come and get them. But, you know, so it kind of follows that trope. And he's in town, and he wants to stay at the house, but it's been sold to this other newcomer in town. And one thing that I have a question about for you guys, since you've read the books and I don't read no books. So one thing I feel like is kind of a missed opportunity, and it gets dropped from this movie shortly after it's brought up, but Ben is kind of exploring this idea that evil places always attract evil. And he's already got a weird feeling about the James Mason character, Richard Straker, who has moved to this town with his business partner. And you guys can see it on the video camera here, but for those of you at home, I put air quotations around business partner because I've got other thoughts here. But this had so like he already has this kind of weird feeling about these people. Why do they want that place? They seem, you know, this guy seems weird. He's
yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So like, but then he says, you know, but why did it bring me here?
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And so I felt like this was kind of this is an opportunity to build up that he was brought here by fate or by whatever, by some sort of supernatural calling to stop Kurt Barlow.
Well, I think more than anything, he was questioning why he was attracted to it as a kid. Like, why did he go up to the house? Why did it call to him? And why did he see what he saw? And I think at that point, it kind of got its hooks in him, right?
Okay.
This is all very Stephen King, by the way.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask you guys
this idea of
that.
places yes, definitely places, towns. I mean, Jerusalem's lot is just down the street from Castle Rock in the Stephen King geography.
Well,
right?
this is the like part of that triangle, right? The
and Derry, yeah.
Yep.
That's often used.
So all of those places in and of themselves attract darkness, attract evil, and King's also always about, like, you know, the counterbalance to that. You've got you know, an evil force, you've got a good force that will fight it.
Okay.
There's always that balance, and Ben is that balance. And Mark, to be honest, Mark plays a much bigger role in the book.
Yeah, I've got a lot to say about Ben and Mark's trajectory.
And that's really what the heart of the whole novel is.
Yeah,
is those two, and it's again what really makes King such a great writer is how he writes characters like that and relationships between those characters and how that kind of relationship grows through troubling circumstances, right? The book is just really, really, really interesting to read because of how Ben and Mark interact with one another. It's very, very, and it's lost a lot in this, unfortunately, but it's hard. Again, it's why it's hard to adapt King, because he writes so much nuance in relationships and character building. It's hard for that to come across in even a 3-hour adaptation of his work.
Yeah.
Right, it probably would have had to been 4 hours to flesh out a lot of that stuff. Something interesting that I read that I wanted to bring up here, and I don't know if it's on the Wikipedia page or common knowledge, but the house on top of the hill that Ben sees in the beginning is actually a house built around another home. So they found this location that they loved, but there was already a house there. So they built the walls around it for filming. And he wanted it to look like the house from Psycho because he's a huge Hitchcock fan. Mm-hmm. But there was a family living inside the walls of that house while they were filming this movie.
That's so weird.
In another house, which I thought was a pretty cool note.
That is.
And as far as the world building is concerned, Ben's reaction here, like, speaks a lot of words when he's looking at the house. Like, you can tell he's terrified. You can tell he's intrigued. I mean, mm-hmm. You learn everything you need to about him in that house with him just looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And when Straker comes up and is like, "Good evening," he's like, I don't know. It's just such a good scene.
Yeah.
So
James Mason oozes villainy
mm-hmm.
throughout this whole, like, I don't know if he's just being directed that way or if it's just what he brings to it with his voice and his accent and his mannerisms, or if he's just like, I'm leaning into this, man. I don't know what it is, but like, he alone is actually pretty terrifying.
Yeah, he picks up a lot of the villainy in this because in the book, Barlow is not a monster.
Okay.
He appears more human in the book. So he gets a lot of more, I'll call it screen time or page time with characters where he can build up his mm-hmm. villainy. But since he's a monster in the movie, you can't put him in the screen with other characters to have him talk to them. So Straker takes up a lot of that building the evil around those two. If that makes sense.
It's almost like Hooper turned the vampire elements of the King novel into something we're more familiar with kind of like a Nosferatu, a more monster type vampire with his familiar, and there's elements of that in the book for sure. But the real, but what he does keep is that body snatchers feel, right?
Yeah.
Of the town slowly turning into monsters and the whole town being overrun, and it's very body snatchers. It's more of a body snatchers movie than it is a vampire movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So here's a little bit further explanation of the Barlow. Producer Richard Kobritz, who took a strong creative interest in his films, added several changes to Monash, who is the writer, the script, including turning the head vampire Kurt Barlow from a cultured human-looking villain to a speechless, demonic-looking monster. Kobritz explained, "We went back to the old German Nosferatu concept where he is the essence of evil mm-hmm. and not anything romantic or smarmy or, the rouge-cheeked, widow-peaked Dracula. I wanted nothing suave or sexual because I just didn't think it'd work. We've seen too much of it. The other thing we did with the character, which I think is an improvement, is that Barlow does not speak. When he's killed at the end, he obviously emits sounds, but it's not even a full line of dialogue in contrast to the book and the first draft of the screenplay. I just thought it would be suicidal on our part to have a vampire that talks. And what kind of voice do you put behind a vampire? You can't do Bela Lugosi, or you're going to get a laugh. You can't do Reagan in The Exorcist, or you're going to get something that's unintelligible. And besides, you've been there before. That's why I think the James Mason role of Straker became more important."
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that makes sense. and of course, yeah, that tracks with what we were thinking for sure.
Yeah.
The first time you see Barlow in this is really, really good. In the
when
kitchen.
when he like falls in and he's like in a clump on the floor,
Mhm.
then
he bashes the mom and dad's heads together. That's in the book too.
Yeah.
His appearance in the book is like that, and he bashes their heads together and kills them. It's kind of funny, like it's almost sort of humorous now, like the way that's staged.
Right.
I kind of laughed out loud, but also really love it still.
Yeah. I just like the idea of like, nah, he's not going to turn them. He's just going to fucking murder them.
He's just going to fucking murder their heads together. Yeah.
Oh, and I also like when Mason comes into that scene, he's like, put the cross down, preacher. And he's like, he like really leans into like the, what else does he call him? He calls him a shaman.
Mm-hmm.
He's like just throwing every word at the priest.
That is directly from the book. That stuff.
Yeah,
it is. And when Mark in the movie says, "I'm going to kill you," before he leaves, is such a great moment.
Yeah.
Like that is Mark Petrie's moment in this movie. It's fantastic.
Yep.
So really the first night of this 2-night, because it was November 17th and 24th of 1979. And basically the first night is just setting the tone of the town. You've got weird people, very Stephen King people. Like you have two Stephen King bullies in this. You have the husband who's I've got something to say. I can come back around to that here in just a minute. But then you also have the boyfriend, the scorned guy who thinks he's the boyfriend of Susan Norton.
And that's a funny scene. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah,
right. So you have Fred Willard, who's not being comedic except for when he nearly pisses himself because he's got a shotgun to his face. He's the town's real estate agent, I guess.
I don't think anyone ever gave Fred Willard a role like that again because he was stretching.
I actually I quite liked him in this.
But
I thought that him in his underwear with the shotgun to his face he was playing that a little soap opera-y.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just underwear. They were silk boxers. Yes. They were like the kind that when you're like 19 years old, you go and you buy from like Target, like for Valentine's Day with your girlfriend. You think this is going to be awesome, and it's not. No further comment, and I will not answer any questions about that. But anyway,
that's like the bootlicker for Straker. He's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So he is having an affair with his secretary, who is played by Julie Cobb, and she's kind of maybe sex starved, I guess is the best way to describe it. And her husband is kind of a fat, gross guy.
Well, her husband is a grosso. I don't know that she's sex starved. She just probably just gets like.
Well, no, she tells him at one point that she doesn't want him to be too tired because she wants some stuff from him.
She doesn't want him to be too drunk.
Oh, too drunk. That's it. No whiskey dick. But this is kind of the first thing I thought of when I saw it is, this is an upcoming episode. I think it's an upcoming. I don't think it's already happened yet, but I watched Attack of the Giant Leeches, and there's that exact same. There's an exact same trio of characters in that as there is with this, where you have a girl who's a little bit too good for the fat grosso who owns a business, and he's doing everything he can to give her the life that he thinks she wants, but she's sleeping with the smarmy other guy, and they get caught, and they start blaming each other for who started the affair. and who's doing what. Like, oh, he's trying to rape me, or no, she came on to me, or this, and all the while they're pleading to a fat grosso with a shotgun. And it's exactly from that Roger Corman movie, Attack of the Giant Leeches. And I wonder, I would not be terribly surprised if maybe that is a Stephen King thing. Like he saw it and it's like, oh, that's an interesting little trio of characters in a small town. Where
I find it fascinating this movie came out the same year as Phantasm, because it's very Phantasm.
It is. It's like Phantasm with vampires.
It is. And it reminds me of and a lot of the theme of the Phantasm movies and this movie are the same. It reminds me of my favorite quote from Phantasm 2, which is, small towns are like sorry, let me try that again. Small towns are like people. Some get old and die a natural death. Some are murdered.
Yep.
That's the essence of Salem's Lot, is exactly that. And you get the feeling that Barlow does this. He goes from small town to small town, and he just consumes these towns.
Well, that's even that was even like hinted at by Ben. I think that he must have been waiting for centuries for the perfect opportunity to get a town like this or something like this. Like he made that comment that he thought that was basically what was going on. So there's a little thing on our show here, and this goes back to one of our very earliest moments where,
oh my,
uh-oh,
oh my.
So if anybody has been listening to our show for a while, we made a big deal about the sexy poop brown undies in Friday the 13th Part 2. And here we are, some almost 130 episodes later. and well, also in the in-between time, we also came up with the sexy outfit quotient,
yes.
And
I still don't know how to do that math, but Jeff has got it down.
I got it.
I haven't been introduced to these maths yet, I don't think.
So go back to
it's that new math, Chuck.
Yeah,
God.
Go back to Color of Night, and there's a sexy outfit quotient, and Julie Cobb as Bonnie Sawyer in this, the woman who's cheating on her husband with Fred Willard, not only outdoes the sexy poop brown undies, but I think also smashes the sexy outfit quotient all in one moment.
Well, all right. Well, I will give you the sexy quotient smashing. But if you remember, the poop brown undies, in what way is she outdoing that? Because the poop brown undies, the joke there was that she took off what were perfectly sexy underwear to put on the poop brown undies, which were not very sexy at all.
No,
but that she thought was an upgrade.
So here we go. Let me set the stage for you. All right.
Okay.
I studied the scene. I watched it 5 times. So Julie's husband, who is what's his Cully, he's being hired by Straker to go pick up the Barlow coffin, basically.
Yeah, I think Barlow is in it, but I'm not positive.
He is.
Yeah.
Right. But he gets...
it's a sideboard. He tells him that he's picking up a sideboard, and Susan was like, he's picking up a cyborg?
Oh my God, cyborg vampires. Somebody make that movie.
Would be a totally different movie, but I would watch it.
I'm in. But so he hires Ned, right? Ned Tibbetts. And Jeffrey Lewis, Mike Ryerson, to go in his stead, and he'd pay him $50 each to go pick up this thing, because he thinks that Bonnie is sleeping with Larry, who's Fred Willard. So he's going to sneak back around and find her. So he leaves, and it's like, oh, I'm going to be gone well past midnight or whatever. And she's like, got it. So she goes home that night, puts on this terry cloth jumper, like this little romper. It's like, It's like a tube top and shorts.
It looks like a Richard Simmons outfit.
It does.
Except for it's a tube top. It's not. It does not have. I have studied this.
That's fair. Okay, that's fair.
It is essentially big pants, like big shorts, because it goes up and covers her boobs.
It is. I think it's two. I'm looking at it right now. I think it's a two-piece, Jeff.
Are you sure?
I don't know.
It looks like a jumper.
It also looks. It does look like a jumper because it's all one color, but it might be two pieces.
It might be, but I think it's a jumper.
We'll go with that. We'll romper.
Because
it's definitely. We'll go with romper.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a romper. Yeah. So anyway, and it's like terry cloth, right? And it's kind of like a silvery, like bluish color.
Yeah, it's shimmers, and it's terry cloth or felt, sort of. Yeah.
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 And she puts this on, and puts on a pair of high heels. Because that's the perfect combination with terry cloth, right?
And her red hair is just on fire.
Just and she calls up Fred Willard, and she poses sexy for no one, just for the camera, against the table where her phone is. And she's like, "Hey, you coming over? I want you to come over here," because like she's not going out in that. She's not going out in the sexy jumper romper. And those high heels can't be very comfortable. Those high heels are there for one reason, and that is to get fucked.
Did you notice that they've got a picture of the Mona Lisa in their house?
That's fantastic. Even better. I mean, if
I'm a replication of the Mona Lisa in their living room.
If I'm Fred Willard, I'm there. I'm going. I'm going. It's like I'm for nothing else to look at the Mona Lisa.
By the way, this outfit goes over her shoulders. Sorry.
Yeah, it does.
It does go over her shoulders? Okay.
Yeah, it goes over her shoulders.
Okay. So, but anyway, so she's still like, she purposely put this on to await for Fred Willard to come over with his red satin undies.
And it's got a little collar on it too. It goes over her shoulders and it's got a little collar.
It might be like a halter top. Then
kind of like a V-neck with a button.
Yeah, that seems like a halter.
It's weird. They have a copy of the Mona Lisa in the background.
That's what I was just saying.
Did you say I missed it?
I was gonna say it screams as like a couple who have no idea how to make their house look fancy, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So
they're like, they've got
the dinner table
shop, and they've got a replica of the Mona Lisa. Like, that'll be perfect.
Well, they got a dinner table right next to their TV. Like, how's that going to work? But anyway, this is just perfect. This is perfect. This is 70s sex just screaming at you here. and she thinks that this is one, the easiest thing to wear for the shenanigans she wants to get up to, and two, she pre-planned this. She put this on before even inviting him over. This is brilliant. All of the charts have now a new standard to be set by. Julie Cobb, congratulations. You have made Film Seizure history. All right, so
that's
vampires.
Awesome. So vampires.
Yeah.
The first victims are children.
They are.
Which is interesting.
This is what has always stuck with me about this version of Salem, or just this movie, is the kids and the scratching at the windows.
Oh,
I think that's probably what terrified most people, and that sticks with them is those two scenes where the first brother goes to his older brother's bedroom, and then when that older brother goes to Mark's bedroom. Those two scenes are scary.
Yeah, when the young man, the first one, I think is Danny is the first one. I might be wrong there. But when they have the airplanes hanging from the ceiling on the wires and he comes in through the fog, it's just like, one, I thought it was clever that they're probably trying to hide wires with other wires.
Sure.
But it was just cool, the planes, signifying flight and all that. And it was just, it is really creepy.
Yeah. And the way that those things cast shadows too really well too, and it's like bats, Yeah,
I didn't even think of that. Totally.
And I would have hung out with Mark because he was a monster kid.
Totally.
I would have wanted to see all of the stuff in his room. He's got that bitchin' poster of Lon Chaney Jr.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that was always something like. First of all, you're not used to seeing kids as monsters, even then,
right?
And you're not used to the threat starting with children usually. So like, yeah, and then also like the whole idea that they're just like tapping on the window, which for next week kind of reminded me of the rapping on the chamber door.
Yeah.
But anyway,
wasn't there a scene sort of like that later in Fright Night? Didn't they kind of parody that?
Maybe I think so.
Yeah, I feel like there was. It's been a while since I've seen that.
But yeah, no, that is something that I think most people would say, like, what's the first thing you think of with Salem's Lot? Is probably the kids or the image of Barlow, because he's pretty striking. But I mean, if you go to IMDb and pull up the Salem's Lot page, it starts automatically playing the little trailer or whatever, the little 1 minute trailer. And one of the first things you see is a kid floating through the window. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty creepy. Pretty creepy. So
yeah.
Go ahead, Chuck.
I was just going to bring up, I don't even know what I was going to bring up. I wanted to talk about Kenneth McMillan, though, as the cop of the town. Because I think he comes up pretty quickly after the first boy disappears. He's
Constable
actually
Parkins Gillespie.
Yeah, Parkins.
He's the head of the Harkonnens in Dune. He's the guy with all the pulsing gooey and stuff on his face.
He's gross.
Yeah.
He might be my favorite character in this whole movie.
Well, because he actually is doing his job. He's not a bullshit cop until he decides to hightail it.
Well, they kind of merge him and Father Callahan in this, in a way.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was going to look up the book to see if the constable skipped town.
I can't remember. If the constable skips town or not in the book, but Callahan does, and that is something they excise from this after his showdown of faith with Barlow that you don't really see the conclusion of, other than the cross gets destroyed. Callahan features a little bit more prominently in the book, but still isn't a huge player. But he leads
the raid at the house.
He teams up with Mark and Ben at one point.
Yeah,
and he does have that showdown in that kitchen with Mark's parents, and that whole thing happens. That is Father Callahan in that scene. But after he loses his faith, essentially, he skips town. He leaves. He abandons everyone.
I'll give you a little more context there, if that's all right. Instead of killing him, Barlow makes him drink his blood.
Yeah.
And what that does is it essentially damns him.
Mm-hmm.
So he
can't even enter his own church. Yeah.
Tries to go back to his church, and the door burns his hand.
Yeah.
And he leaves town. And I don't know, maybe we'll talk about this more later, but the way that Father Callahan bounces out of town is a huge player in the Stephen King universe after this, which is
absolutely
pretty cool.
A huge player.
Ginormous. Stephen King said he felt bad about the way that he treated Father Callahan, and he wanted to give him retribution.
Redemption.
Redemption. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we haven't even so obviously there's something going on, but the one thing I do kind of like about this is that you don't really have that Van Helsing type of character who comes in. It's like, well, obviously these are all vampires. You don't get that until much, much later when Ben Mears, I guess it's kind of like his mentor.
Jason Rourke.
Yeah. He spots the bite marks, and he's like, let's try a crucifix.
That's so awesome. He starts reading vampire books.
Yeah.
To try to learn how to stop them.
Right. And then he calls up Ben, and it's like, hey, you got to bring this stuff. Yeah. And so, but like there's a natural, like, well, I guess we can try this. It's like there's, it doesn't feel like that there's anybody who's just coming in instantly raving that they're supernatural monsters.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's kind of interesting. It's one of the first vampire movies I can remember where people are aware of vampires.
Yeah.
Bram Stoker's Dracula was actually written.
Right. It's
But
like,
I wrote
you
a
know what
note.
I mean?
I wrote a note about this very thing, and I said people face the reality of the situation appropriately and don't deny what they see.
yeah.
Right. And that's
They may have
exactly
to
what
be
it is.
convinced, but they
Mhm.
don't. But they're not immediate to just throw the person's opinion out.
But again, this reminds me of Phantasm. Phantasm's
Yeah.
the same way. They don't deny what they see. You know, there's this very specific scene with Mike and his brother, right? When he shows him the finger in the box, he's like, "Okay, I believe you.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
We're dealing with some spooky shit." Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, but Ed Flanders, one of my favorite character actors in horror movies, he's Bill Norton. He's kind of the town doctor, and he is appropriately calling the deaths or the sicknesses that people have from anemia, because that's always been, I think, even going back to Bram Stoker, I think anemia has always been the affliction that vampires give somebody before they turn them. So it's he's seeing things from a scientific view, but also understands that it's a bit odd that so many people are suddenly anemic and never have shown signs before. Which Ben, I think, was the one who even says, like, what, it just came on all of a sudden?
Overnight?
Overnight?
What?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, Hutch is like, man, I don't know. Huggy Bear says this doesn't happen overnight. But he is a pretty central character because he's there at the end, and he's got a stake in Ben being maybe not crazy because his daughter is Susan, is Bonnie Bedelia. And so I always think, whenever I think of Bonnie Bedelia, I always think of an onion, but that's Vidalia.
A Vidalia?
Yeah.
I just always think of
Sweet
Die Hard,
onion.
but yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But anyway.
Or you know what it is, too? It's like Amelia Bedelia.
Yeah. So she's, and Susan's this kind of, I think, Chuck, you were the one who were like, she's kind of a kooky
Yeah, she's
gal.
quirky, weird. Yeah.
Because like she likes being alone. She's off in the woods by herself reading, or doing whatever, like she's a teacher.
All sorts of stuff. She's doing all sorts of stuff there.
And she's got like all of her life is spread out in front of her.
Yep.
It's like she's writing something. She's got Ben Mears' book. She doesn't remember what his other book's title was, which I've found that to be kind of hilarious.
Yep.
Like, oh yeah, we've read your stuff, or have we read any of your stuff? Like those types of things always like brings somebody back down to earth. But she kind of doesn't want to be with this one guy, but he keeps, like, she's kind of trapped. Like, this is kind of that small town feel, right? Where you kind of have to be with the person who shows you affection if you don't really have many other options or any other options in a small town. But she kind of, keeps him at arm's length. She speaks very interestingly, I think.
She has weird phrasing. Like, she's quirky.
Yeah. I mean, like, she's almost scared of Ben, because at one point she's like, so this is when you're going to tell me that that this doesn't really mean anything, or
right.
She's very like direct, but also very shy.
This is the kind of, and Jason, I don't want to speak for you, but is this the kind of scene that reminded you of some other stuff? I don't want to.
What do you mean?
Well, you said you were getting Twin Peaks vibes.
Which scene in particular are you talking about?
When Ben Mears is talking to Susan for the first time and she's behind the tree.
A little bit. Honestly, the whole small town feel of this, and the way the houses are dressed, the interiors are dressed, it all feels like Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks to me. Especially Twin Peaks because of the 4x3 and the sort of neutral colors,
right?
A lot of neutral colors everywhere. Yeah, I mean, but there are a lot of interactions. It just feels very fully realized as a small town, like Twin Peaks is, and the way that families kind of treat one another. There's elements of Twin Peaks there as well. Like I got kind of vibes on Donna and her father from Twin Peaks with Susan and her father. There's a particular scene where her father and Ben are talking. He's like, "Everybody knows you were up at the lake." You know?
Yeah,
And
be a little bit more discreet.
well, it was
but then
more than
tells
that.
her
What I really loved about that was how he prefaced even that. He said to him, I think she respects you,
and
I
I
know
know
she
you.
respects herself.
Yeah.
So do you think you maybe could have been a little bit more discreet? And Ben is kind of like, "Yep, you're right. I
Mhm.
messed up." That is very Donna and Hayward, Dr. Hayward. I don't know who the male would be in that. Probably what's his face? The motorcycle guy. His name is escaping me. But anyway, yeah, there are moments like that feel very much like the sort of the soap opera aspects of Twin Peaks, but not super melodramatic either. They feel real.
Yeah, and I would also I like that there's that realism also of he told you to be more discreet, but he told me to be more forceful with my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, he kind of contradicts himself. And she's like, well, he's a New England, guy or whatever she
Yeah.
says. It builds that kind of realism to it too, right?
I just think she was too old for that kind of treatment, but
well,
if she was a teenager, it would have made more sense to me. I still like the scene, and I get what you guys are saying. It's just like, man, she's 30. Why is
I don't think she's supposed to be 30. Though.
No, she didn't realize she's 30 in this, but
right. But she's probably like just out of college kind of age.
Well, yeah,
I think she's older than that because she left town and had a job and then lost her job and had to move back and become a teacher. Like, she's had some years on her life, I'm pretty sure. But
yeah,
you might be right.
Maybe. But I think that there is still that they make a point a couple of times to comment on whether or not people go to church or what their faith is. And I have a feeling that that's just that kind of small town.
Everybody just knows everybody's shit, man.
Yeah, and it's like everybody knows who everybody's fucking.
Yep.
And that's
and she even has
town.
like the kind of abusive ex-boyfriend, like Donna has in Twin Peaks, and it's a very, the guy. This is a trope in a lot of things. So it's something that we just watched recently. I can't remember what that this came up in, but the guy who. Oh, Superman 3, right?
Oh yeah, Brad.
The small Brad, yeah, the small town guy who he probably dated her in high school. He's never left.
Did not date her in high school. He was the prom king and married the prom queen or the homecoming queen, and they split up because that's just how it happens.
Right. So he thinks that he's hot shit in town and that she doesn't have any options anyway. So why not be with him? But then Ben Mears comes to town and she's enamored by his exotic nature and his awesome hair.
Yes. That's exactly what I was going to say.
And his sweet Jeep, which door never closes properly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a recurring thing where he's constantly like having to go back and
stupid door.
Well, that's a Jeep for you, man. I have a feeling that's why people take them off of their Jeep.
Yep.
In fact,
did you guys? There's a moment I really like with the constable and his there's a lot of moments I like with them, but this one in particular, when they do a little bit of research on Ben, and his like sheriff's deputy or whatever comes back to him with the information he's dug up on Ben, and he basically concludes with he's a left winger.
Yeah.
And he's kind of sheriff constable, or the constable kind of looks at him like, what do you mean? And he says, against nuclear power. I'm remember when being a left winger just meant you were kind of like a little crunchy or against nuclear power. It's like, man, harmless. Basically his conclusion. Harmless.
Yeah.
The constable after that, I think, goes because he's a bit thinking that Ben Mears, Barlow, and Straker are in cahoots somehow because they all came together.
At the same, right? They converged at the same time.
But he goes to see Straker and he's talking to him. I can't remember the whole conversation, but when he's leaving, he says "ciao," and Straker's like, "I didn't realize you were Italian." He's like, "I'm not. The word is."
Yeah, I like that.
I love him so much. I wrote down, "I love this cop."
Yeah,
he's so great.
So that's something I wanted to talk about because I asked you guys about this last night. I think that, and this probably is, I don't know if this is necessarily part in the book, although Chuck, I think you kind of said that there's something that kind of maybe plays to this, but I get the impression at one point when because the constable goes to Straker to get his black suit because one kid went missing, the other kid's sick. The kid that gets sick dies, while the other kid they're searching for him, and the cop is doing the right thing by, well, there's these newcomers in town, we don't know who they are, and whether that's fair or not, that's something you should probably look into. But Ben helps try to find, and he finds a little piece of black cloth stuck to like a burr or something on a plant. And he's like, well, Straker always wears black suits. So the constable goes.
Straker wearing a gray suit.
Right.
Yeah, that cracked me up.
Yeah.
And so he goes to get the black suits to investigate them. Now, Straker agrees, but he's a little frustrated by the request because he does, he's like, am I suspicious of something? Or am I being, am I a suspect in this? And the constable says, well, not
kind of.
Yeah, it's very non-committal, but it's not straightforward as like, yes, you are. And he's like, well, kind of. And it's like, oh, is it because I'm strange? Or I think he even brings up me and Barlow and myself are a little strange. And that immediately called it. It's like, are they playing up a little bit of a gay angle with these two? Because
I think it's fair to read it that way. Yeah,
because they're antiquers. They totally travel together. They've been together.
This is their retirement. He says
this is their retirement. They both bought the house.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think that, and he's kind of putting up that human facade of, you suspect us because you don't like our kind. Not, and it's, they're European, but that there's code for other things. And the way that James Mason's playing the character feels very effeminate at times too.
Yeah, I think in the book that's a little, like I think I told you last night, it's more alluded to. And the fact that Barlow is actually human in the book, you get a little more read on that. In the movie, I don't know how it would be possible for this monster and Straker to be gay. I don't know.
I mean,
well, obviously not, but that's like Jeff's saying, it's kind of the fact that nobody knows who Barlow is. They think he could very well be his partner. Yeah, for sure. Like more than just a business partner.
Well, he's the right now, because nobody's ever seen him. He's kind of like, oh yeah, that's my girlfriend from Canada. My girlfriend from Canada, guys.
Right.
I always talk about her.
Right. Yes. Yeah, there is a little bit of that. Like this, he's all made up. He's imaginary. Yeah. So when is he coming to town?
Snuffleupagus.
Yeah.
Oh my God! If Barlow was Snuffleupagus, somebody make that cut.
But yeah, he does kind of try to put the fear into Straker. He's like, I got to send these to the FBI, which is not true whatsoever, at least.
No, he just looks them over, realizes there's nothing missing, and gets frustrated.
Yeah, all he really accomplished was to rattle Straker a little bit because, quite honestly, Straker is not a dummy. If he did have a black suit that was torn.
He has 3 of them. He doesn't have just 2.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and
I get the same thing. It's like, why would he be honest and bring you the suit that got messed up?
Yeah. The only thing he's going to accomplish here is being annoying and rattle this guy if in case he is
maybe make a mistake or something.
Exactly. The constable is a small town guy, but he feels like he has an absolute know-how of what to do.
He's a good cop. He's a likable cop. He's a good cop.
Yeah.
Well, the fact is, I mean, there's only so many newcomers in town, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Something's going on with one of these people.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah. So, I mean, really, at this point, it's when Jeffrey Lewis gets bitten by one of the boys. That's the end of the first part of the.
Is that in the grave?
That's in the grave. Yeah.
Yeah, that scene's great. And
then he comes crashing into this restaurant or a bar or something because Ben orders him a whiskey. But it looks like a Pizza Hut. He comes crashing in when
Pizza Huts were bars in the 80s, though.
They were.
Oh yeah.
Now they have combination Taco Bells and Pizza Huts.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd ever want to mix Taco Bell with a bar. That's bad news.
Oof. But man, yeah, do you remember those Pizza Hut bars where they had the buffets and they had a little sit down Miss Pac-Man machines?
Oh yeah,
dude, the blue cheese salad dressing at the Pizza Hut Red Houses, I think they were Red Roofs, at the salad bar. Man, if I could buy tubs of that shit, I would. It was so good.
You remember Book It? You could bring if you read so many, Jeff,
yes,
because he didn't read books, but if you read so many books in your summer reading list, you could get a free personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut.
Hell yeah. God, their deep dish was so freaking good in the 80s.
What
happened to Pizza Hut?
Oh God, pizza is my least favorite pizza. I'd rather get a Little Caesars than a Pizza Hut.
Now pizza's gonna take out for you.
Oh man, Spaceballs. That's great. But anyway, so he comes crashing in and they realize he's sick and he's pale. He's kind of anemic looking. And Jason takes Mike home to basically like help him feel better or whatever. Cause he also is rambling about like eyes and whispers and songs. Somebody was singing to him. And that he fell asleep on top of a hill and was there all night. And Jeffrey Lewis has that awesome New England accent. Is a little bit like Fred Gwynn from.
I was just gonna say sometimes dead is better.
But he. So that's when Jason spots that he's got the bite marks. Was after he's been at his house for like a day or whatever. And so then like weird shenanigans go on. He hears something going on in the house. There's a window that was locked is left open. The bite marks are gone, but Mike is dead. And so so that's when Jason's like, hey man, something more going on here.
Yeah, he calls Ben over to investigate, basically, and Ben finds no pulse.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, it's freaking vampires, dude. Like, it's his immediate thought is they're vampires.
Like, and then for a long while, really, it's up to Ben to basically convince Bill, the doctor, that it's not just a sudden case of anemia all over town, but that like, hey, come to the morgue because one of the kids or the two kids who died first, their mom is now dead and she's hanging out there. And it's like, all right, you go back and make sure that your daughter and wife have put up all the things I told you to put up, the crucifixes, the garlic, whatever.
Hawthorne? I think he said Hawthorne, whatever.
That it looked like some sort of evergreen. Like maybe it is hawthorn. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking like hemlock or hawthorn or something.
I thought it was garlic, but
well, I think he does say garlic at one point. String up garlic inside, but outside there's like that evergreen.
Yeah,
whatever it was. Yeah, but because he was proud that she did it later. Like, oh, good girl. That it's like, wow, you actually, because the mom was the one who was going to be a problem, and it was kind of Susan's way of kind of taking control of the situation at home. But anyway, so Bill goes to call home to make sure everybody's safe, and Ben is left in the room with a moving corpse. And I love that scene so much because he's like, Bill, help.
He's frantically trying to tape like two pieces of wood together. Yeah, make a crucifix.
There were two tongue depressors and Scotch tape. Yeah,
I thought they were popsicle sticks, but you're right. It's like, why is he making crafts at a time like this?
So like then that basically proves everything, because like he also realizes that if you stick the crucifix on the vampire long enough, that they just poof go away. They're all gone.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird rules in this.
It still moves things around, like it almost like they get sucked into like a black hole.
I know we're jumping around a lot, but I wanted to mention, to speak to Chuck's comment earlier about the kids floating outside the windows and the smoke to obscure the wires. They actually didn't use wires.
Interesting.
Yeah. Was
it like an arm so they could go through the window?
It was a boom crane. So they said, we didn't fly our vampires in on wires because even in the best of films you can see them. Producer Richard Corbett explained, we wanted to get a feeling of floating, and the effect is horrific because there are no wires. It has a very spooky, eerie quality to it. The levitation sequences were also shot in reverse to make the scene more eerie.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So at this point it's like, all right, well, when the sun comes up, we all gotta get out of here. It's like we gotta beat cheeks. And he tells Susan, go find anybody who will listen to you and leave. I'm going to go see the constable. And the constable is like, I'm already out of it, man. I'm leaving.
He's going on vacation.
He's got his station wagon packed.
Yeah.
In fact, I wonder what the constable ended up doing for the rest of his life, because he left. He was just gone. But he gave him a gun and basically deputized Ben.
I thought that too, because like he can't get a job in police probably.
Yeah, he was nearing retirement anyway.
Yeah, hopefully he had a good retirement plan, because I hope he wasn't counting on that Salem's Lot pension, because
the other alternative was death. Probably he was probably going to die, so whatever happens to him after he leaves town, good on him. Kudos to you for surviving.
It is interesting though. It's like do you protect your family, or do you stay to your duty? It's kind of like an ethical question there, a moral question. He should be like the boat ship captain. He should be the last man off the ship, or go down with the ship.
That's interesting, and this idea will come up kind of in another episode during Stephen King week. At what point does your duty extend to supernatural if you're a cop? Yeah. Or if you're in that kind of position of power, you have information on somebody, what would you do? Which comes up in another movie. But I think he's well within his right. I mean, he's supposed to protect and serve humans from humans. Yeah. Once something supernatural enters the mix, I think his contract is broken.
Yeah, you call out for that. You call out for that weirdo Dutch guy that will come out and take care of this.
I mean, as far as morality is concerned, he probably should have stuck around. But as far as his top duties, I don't know.
I mean, Kant would say he failed in his duty. But
anyone who runs failed in their civic duty, right? I mean,
but Mill would probably say, well, he saved the lives of his wife and child, and it was the greater good for him to leave because the town was doomed.
Well, I think what we're just trying to get at is wear your damn mask.
Yeah, wear your mask. Wear your mask.
But he should have at least called the National Guard or something, or made a phone call.
Well, see, here's the thing, though. Also, Ben realizes, because Ben, when he's telling,
call it Castle Rock Police, man. They've seen some shit.
You call Tom Skerritt. So, Ben tells Susan at one point, it's like, because he's explaining how bad this is going to go. He's like, it's a geometric increase of the infection, right? It's going to be 2 making 4 making 8 making 16, and so on. And it does not take very long for a town of they kept showing it. It was like 2031 or whatever. It's not going to take very long in a geometric increase for that to be very quickly overrun.
Oh, I'm pretty sure by the time this movie is over, probably over 50% of the people are already infected.
Right, because and Ben realizes that because the deputy is infected, and then he like when they're driving around the town, it's daylight and there's nobody anywhere.
Right.
So they're either turned or they're dead or they're in the process of being turned.
Right.
And so basically it's save who you can, and the cop has already seen enough bullshit to realize I gotta go. And so I mean, like by that time he decides to confront Barlow and Straker, it's already too late for the town. It's almost apocalyptic. And so he and Susan does something really kind of stupid. She sees Mark, who is, he's going in with some stakes and with some plans to go kill Barlow, and she's like, damn, I'm gonna have to go in there and get him, and follows him into the house. And then this is where like that it's almost like a house of mirrors, like everywhere she looks she just misses him, or he's until she sees him upstairs. And it's like then they argue loudly about whether or not they should stay or leave.
Dude, when she was yelling his name or loudly calling for Mark, I'm like, I wrote this down like 4 times. Shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up. Like, he's trying to kill a vampire. Why are you yelling? He's obviously trying to sneak, you dumbass.
Yeah.
And so much.
and at what point are you like, man, that's his beef. I'm out. It's like, I got to go.
Right. The constable would have been gone.
He's already halfway to Florida.
Yeah.
But yeah, so of course she gets captured by Straker.
Yeah.
You don't see anything more. Now Straker appears to have some powers because he picks Bill up later.
Yeah, that was a kind of a surprise to me. I didn't remember him exhibiting human or superhuman strength.
Yeah, I mean he's obviously a ghoul or a like a familiar for the vampire.
Yeah,
So I don't know if he's just got a little bit of power from that or what, but he so like Ben and Bill have to, like, they realize that Susan hasn't come back to pick up her mother, so they have to go and find her, but it's already getting too late in the day, so they just go to the house, and Straker kills Bill. Ben finds Mark but can't find Susan. Does find Barlow. He shoots Straker, so obviously he's not a full vampire, right? Mm-hmm. He just shoots him like 6 times. He empties a gun on him and he dies.
That's cool when he's walking down the stairs and he's like, oh, 1 bullet doesn't work, 2 bullets didn't work, and you get the feeling that he's just going to walk through all these bullets, and then finally he falls. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then I liked, he does eventually find all of the rest of the vampires. They're in a room, kind of sleeping around the coffin.
In the root cellar.
In the root cellar, yeah. And so they pull the coffin out, and he stakes Straker or Barlow. Too many names in this damn. Like, right, fewer people. Anyway, so he ends up staking Barlow, and that's a pretty cool scene too because he like turns the dust. It's a very Hammer horror thing there, where he's like just layer by layer, like what's the decomposing, I guess.
Yeah, it was cool.
But so basically, they set a fire. That's
a very Hooper effect too. Yeah.
So they
in a lot of his movies. They
set a fire which the wind is going to blow and basically destroy Salem's Lot. And they decide that they probably should take to the road. And this is really the first time that Ben and Mark are together. And it's just in that final scene, but they have this growing like trajectory that's going to put them like they're both figuring things out at the same time, and then they meet at the exact moment where they both plan on, well, killing some vampires, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, he just kind of adopts Mark, really.
Yeah, his parents are dead. I mean, there's the town. If you don't see it, the town pretty much burns to the ground.
Yeah, there's a little bit of, I think in the novel, they go back and burn the town after they leave. Like they come back a year later or something like that. There's which is
a very King thing to do. He likes destroying evil towns.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then they're on the run.
Yeah, and they end up in Guatemala where they're just going basically wherever they can go before they get found by any of the survivors. And they pick up holy water, and the holy water kind of acts as a detector because the bottle glows blue whenever there's a vampire in town.
Yeah, I thought that was dumb.
Well,
me too.
It kind of comes out of nowhere, really.
Yeah.
Because the only other time that you saw anything with the holy water is he picked up some holy water only to drop it when he needed it the most, and it just kind of like acted like acid on the evil.
I did like that though. I like that thought that it also works on evil things, not just evil, not just a monster or a person, right?
Right.
Yeah, it works on it. It proves his theory that the house is inherently evil.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and so but there is one vampire that found him.
Yeah.
And it's Susan. And you know what? She's looking pretty good. I'd probably be like, you know what? I'm fucking tired, man. Like, yeah, let's do this.
I'm sick of running. Let's just be vampires forever together.
It was interesting the way they shot that, where he was kind of drawn in by her, but he was slowly like pulling his stake up. I thought it was Mark behind him. Like I was thinking, man, it would be awesome if Mark just flew in there and staked the fuck out of him.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Mark should have made that kill. But
yeah, because like Mark was the one who wanted to keep moving. I think originally.
I think Ben had the feeling that this was Susan. I think he thought it was her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, like she got dressed up for him and everything, you know, she got a nice dress. She, you know, obviously vampires, you know, get some kind of money. Like they obviously have some sort of universal basic income.
Yes, they do.
A vampire.
Yes, they do.
You know, because she's got new clothes. She looks like she showered, so she probably had a nice room in the bigger towns in Guatemala.
It's like vampire safe houses all throughout the country.
They get the Transylvania $5,000 every year.
Yeah, they get a weekly stipend. They go around, you know, like because
this is not travel expense.
Yeah, it's like travel expense. She's got to get her hair did. She's got to get that nice dress she's wearing. You know?
They all submit like.
Yeah, it's all like expense reports. There's one vampire back in Pennsylvania who's like the vampire accountant. It's like, oi, this guy is all of a sudden, you know, it's like he bought what? What? He bought a whole house. Oh man,
you can't even drink beer.
Straker, you bought a whole house. That is going to break our budget.
Vampire accountants. That should be a movie.
Well, yeah, because vampires always have all nice shit, right? Like Dracula bought a whole abbey in Dracula.
Right. You're right. All those Draculas got money.
They do. Well, you know, it's those Draculas. So it pays to be a Dracula. So, Jason, you wanted to talk about the commercial breaks.
I think mostly they were really good. Sometimes they were played, you know, as a scare. And I thought that those were kind of cheesy but awesome. The freeze frame zoom, like when Fred Willard dies, the Barlow's hand is in the frame, and you see Fred Willard kind of scream, right? And there's a big sort of Bernard Herrmann clang.
Right.
And it freezes and zooms and cut to commercial, right? Which I think is awesome. I think I want to frame that freeze frame and put it on my wall. I loved it. There's another moment like that a little later. I can't remember it specifically. I think it was when Barlow shows up in the prison cell and kills the
Tebbets.
Yes, and that was I think actually the first time you see Barlow, but not fully. And I believe there was another free zoom there when he kills him in the cell.
Yep.
Those worked really well for me. They're dated, but I love them. They give this movie a certain kind of charm that you wouldn't get otherwise. But there was one that I didn't like, and it's when Mark and Ben are kind of creeping into the room in the Marston house, and then it cuts to commercial, and it comes back from commercial, and they're still creeping in.
After they fall down the stairs. It's after they drop down the stairwell. Yeah. It was a little bit weird.
They could have figured something else out there. Obviously, they don't know that this is going to be viewed, in a kind of a movie length format one day, but that was an odd cut. I guess I kind of know why they did it. It's just like, hey, remember, this is where we were, but they could have done something else. But all in all, I really think the 4:3 works for this movie. Toby Hooper, the way he frames it, it's very deliberately shot in 4:3. And when you actually shoot for 4:3 and take that sort of deliberate approach, you can do it really well. And where it does feel a little kind of soap opera at times, that also I think is part of this movie's strength.
Yeah,
is in that character development, and then the horror, is pretty tame for the day, for the time, but they really ramp up the spookiness.
Yeah,
it's not gory, it's not violent necessarily, but I mean, there are moments that are pretty shocking still. I mean,
I would still say, for 1979 television,
yeah,
this probably pushed some boundaries.
Especially the stuff with the kids, right? I mean, that's pretty hardcore stuff. I have a few things, just little mentions of things that I find interesting. We have another kind of dad and son who don't get along. Dad doesn't understand son. We're going to talk a little bit about that next week. Kid vampires. They're just creepy. There's something really unnatural, even for a vampire movie, about a kid who's a vampire, right?
I think the best way that's ever been described and explained and played out.
Interview
with the Vampire.
Yeah,
because here you have a child who will mentally continue to grow, but will forever be stuck as essentially a porcelain doll.
Well, that's
creepy, man.
There are a few, that's super creepy. There are a few examples of that that I think are really well done. Interview is definitely up there. It was on my list. Near Dark is another, and Let the Right One In and its remake, Let Me In, both really explore that well. But yeah, it's just, exactly, Jeff. That idea that you're trapped in this child's body and you never get to grow up. Yeah.
You're maturing you're maturing mentally, but not physically. And it's frustrating because, it's like you want to grow up, and I'm sure that's also meant to, if I would climb inside of Anne Rice's head, because it's been, I don't remember from the novel. I'm sure that there were other things that represented too, and other problems that would represent. But
I had for a vampire movie, a lot of this takes place during the day.
Yeah,
and it doesn't feel like it's doing that because of budget. It's doing that because there are deliberately things that have to happen during the day that are also really scary.
Well, you're not following the vampires. You're following the heroes,
right? And also, Straker is a daytime character,
Yep.
right? So yeah, I think that was really interesting. I thought the fact that
Well,
the house is white
Yeah.
is interesting with a blue roof.
They could have very easily made that black or dark brown.
The old dark house,
something.
right? Yeah, exactly. It's very much like that when you go inside. It is the old dark house, but
You're right.
But from the outside, it's imposing, but it's not necessarily what you would classically think of the haunted house.
In the novel, was Barlow ever out during the day?
I don't think so.
Because this was very heavily influenced by Dracula, for Stephen King, and Dracula 100%. He has daytime activity.
Yes.
I think Barlow was at the shop, the antique shop. He was more active in the book for sure.
Yeah, I can't remember fully.
Yeah. I also think, speaking of King and Bram Stoker's Dracula, that Barlow and Straker are some kind of nod to Bram Stoker.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure.
That's Yep.
Also, just a note. Ben Mears saying there's no atheists in foxholes.
Love that.
I know we've heard that other places, but I loved it.
Yep.
Here.
Well, it makes sense when you're dealing with something supernatural. You're kind of forced to have to
believe in something else.
Believe in something, yeah. I mean, because he even blesses his own cross that kills the mother of the two boys who come back.
Yes, and I think that is it goes back to maybe the force, if there is any, that brought Ben Mears back to town, was some kind of light to fight the darkness.
Yeah.
But that wasn't super explored here in the movie, and I can't remember if it was in the book, honestly.
There were a couple goofy moments when I forget his name, but Susan sorta kind of like suitor ex-boyfriend, when he shows up in Ben's room.
Oh yeah,
he's like, it's almost like he's under a sheet or something, and they're trying to scare you like Barlow scares you later, right? But he pops up off the floor and he just cold cocks Ben in the jaw.
and then like beats him so badly. He's
in the
taken
hospital
to the
for like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
However long he's in there.
That's crazy.
He's in there right next to Christopher Walken for 5 years.
Yep. Yep. Spoiler alert.
And then there was another, I forget what it is now. There was I forget exactly when this happens, but Ben is he's kind of with what's going on in this town. It's sort of a montage scene, and it cuts between a few different characters, but he is frustratingly writing in his little boarding house room. And he's doing sort of that like hunched over the typewriter thing, and he's got one hand on the piece of paper that's feeding into the typewriter, and he's doing the hammering down with one finger.
Yep.
As he's typing out emphatically something.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not sure that would have been a thing.
I love when Elijah Cook breaks into Ben Mears' room.
Yeah, because was it is it who was it? Was it Cully, who's like, he's out after people who asks what he do, or was it the
cop? It was the constable. Like he asks him to watch him, or he's going to do something to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, the faces he makes when he's looking back and forth between the paper and the woman who runs the boarding house is just awesome.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Elijah Cook, he has that wide-eyed like stare of confusion down perfectly.
Yep.
I mean, he made an entire career on that look.
And I want to circle back because the information that there were two people involved in the killing came directly from Toby in the I watched the beginning of his commentary. But I've been looking as we've been talking, and I can't find it. So I'm wondering if he was referring to someone that worked on the film that maybe wasn't in the film. But Toby definitely said there was two people that worked on the killing. I just can't figure out who they were.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, no. Hang on a second. I've got it. It was.
Was it Marie Windsor?
Marie Windsor. Yeah, that played Ava Miller, the boarding house lady.
Yep.
Okay, it would make sense. So they had scenes together.
I think, in fact, she might have played Elijah Cook's wife.
Yeah, he said he purposely wanted to get them back together, is what he said, because of their chemistry.
She's the one in The Killing who's kind of like pushing him to join this this heist. Yeah, and she's kind of working behind the scenes against him too. Yeah, she's been in a lot of noir films.
Yep.
Very cool.
Well, Salem's Lot.
I also love it when monsters have fillings in their teeth. It always cracks me up.
Oh, yeah.
Always cracks me up.
Yeah, you see that all the time.
Love it so much. Love it. Every time I'm like, yep, fillings.
At least it's not their monster teeth that have fillings. It's just their regular human teeth.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, they could have had fillings before they became vampires.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Did Elijah Cook die in this movie? I don't think he did.
Yeah, he did. He was. There's that really great, charming scene where he goes home with the teacher because the teacher wants to keep an eye on him. And no, that's not Elijah Cook. Sorry.
No, Elijah Cook, I think, does die because Mary Windsor...
It's Jeffrey Lewis, who I'm thinking of.
Mary Windsor is talking about the fact that she was having dreams and that a young weasel was coming to her window. So you have to assume a vampire.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. Cool.
All right.
There's also... Does anyone know who Tara Reid was in this movie? I'm looking at the cast list, and she's in it.
She's in the sequel.
Oh, okay. For some reason,
she's in Return to Salem's Lot that Larry Cohen made, which is just insane.
Interesting.
Yeah.
She's
a little kid in that.
Yeah.
I think it's her debut.
Yep. All right. Well, I think Stephen King month is off and running.
Yes, it is.
We took care of the most definite monster one of the bunch. Next week. By the way, each week this month we each chose one. We have guests who are choosing the last one, which at the time that we are recording this, we still don't know exactly what they're choosing. But
wait, they didn't pick?
No, they haven't picked yet.
Oh my gosh.
So
well, if you watched it or listened to the Almost Famous episode, Amber will be back.
Oh yeah, it's Amber and Blake. They're the ones.
They were on our Dawn of the Dead episode as well.
Yeah.
I was going to say that.
Anyway, but yeah, they'll be picking the last week of the month. But this week was me. That Salem's Lot. I was going to do it as I was saying before we started recording. I was going to do it as a Monster Mondays at some point, but I kept pushing it off because I do a lot of vampire movies because there's a lot of vampire movies, and they're easy monsters to pick. But it's like, hey, you know what? Stephen King month, I'll do it. I'll pick it. Next week, Jason.
Yes,
you're up.
Week is my pick, and we're going back into the world of Cronenberg a little bit here with The Dead Zone.
The Dead Zone.
And I get to talk about how The Dead Zone, in so many ways, is the perfect marriage of Stephen King and David Cronenberg. It's beautiful. That was the project tailor-made for Cronenberg to direct. And boy, did he make something magnificent.
It's quite good. It's quite good. So, so next week we will be back with part 2 of the Stephen King month. This is almost like a mini series itself. Come back next week for the next part of this really, really overdrawn thing.
Free zoom cut.
Is Monster Mondays going to send us more money for next week's episode? I want some pizza.
You want some
pizza money?
Yeah, I need some pizza money.
Yeah, but that's what we're furnishing. We are furnishing only, like Little Caesars. We don't even have Pizza Hut budget, man.
Yeah, you just got that $5.
Yeah. And it's just going to be one too, so we're all going to have to fight over pizza slices. But anyway, so join us next week. In the in-between time, go to filmseizure.com. That's where we got all of our stuffs. Mondays, of course, are Monster Mondays. Wednesdays, of course, are new episodes of Film Seizure. And then on Saturdays, still until the end of the year, is 00 Saturdays. And let's see here. Casino Royale is this Saturday. Right now I'm in the middle of Dracula month, Christopher Lee Dracula month. So vampires.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Lots of vampires.
Lots of vampires this month. But yeah, so Fridays you can go over to bmovieanima.com. That's where you can find my stuff. Go to Facebook, Twitter, search for Film Seizure. We are there and stuff.
Wow, well done. That was a good wrap there.
That was a good plug-in.
You stuck the landing all by your lonesome.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Well done.
So, all right. Well, until next week when we travel into the dead zone, I am Jeff Arbuckle.
I'm Chuck Moore.
I am Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to Film Seizure.